Welcome back, dear viewers. You're still watching The Breakfast Show live on Nile TV International. It's now time for our first topic of discussion for today, and we're going to be talking about the government's efforts dedicated to support industrialization in the industrial sector, and how can this impact the Egyptian economy and its progress. And to shed more light on this topic, we're most delighted to be joined here in the studio by Dr. Zeinab Mohamed, and she's a lecturer of economics. Doctor, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us on The Breakfast Show.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Nawar, and let's first talk about the Egyptian government's efforts to support industrialization. As we know, that President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi even recently just held a meeting with Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli and all the cabinet ministers exclusively to revamp and enforce the spinning and textile sector. So we need to talk about the governments and the states empowering of industrialization in Egypt according to the directives of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi.
Actually, empowering the industrialization in Egypt, it has many pillars. I mean, when we talk about industrialization in Egypt, actually it was like a comprehensive program for many variables. One of these variables is the industrial zones. The government worked heavily on about maybe it is planned to reach a new 20 or 21 industrial zone, and we all know that we had already in Egypt about 70 industrial zone. This is an old industrial zone that we need. The government needs also to activate some of these industrial zones and to see why some of them they are not functioning and why some of the factories are closed. So we talk about new industrial zones, we talk about new rules and regulations, we talk about also vocational training and further training to the youth. We talk about changes in some laws for the sake of small and medium enterprises, and also to encourage youth to work in small industries, which in future will be bigger industries. And of course this will increase our ability to export to the international world. We'll talk about financial inclusion because it's part of it. It's how you are going to encourage youth to start their own projects. So we have to provide them with loans with a lower interest rate. So when I talk about industrialization in Egypt, actually it's a comprehensive plan which has a lot and many of pillars. Some of these pillars also to facilitate the work of the manufacturers and see what are their problems, what are their obstacles, whether it's in laws, so we can do amendments for these laws, whether it's a training and providing the suitable labor force, so you can go and to do the proper training and vocational training. So it's a multi variables actually that we do have, but if we worked in a balanced way on all of these obstacles and all of these variables, at the end definitely we'll achieve a progress.
Doctor, also if you can shed the light on the role and importance of the industrial parks.
Yes, the industrial parks, or the idea of the industrial parks, that you give the manufacturer a place, a piece of land with a respectable place to work on, with the infrastructure, with water, with electricity, with proper roads, which is very important, the proper roads because of the exportation, and also the importance that the location of the industrial zone. Yani, I had read a lot of studies saying that it's how you government put its hand on a place and say this place will be an industrial zone. The location of the industrial zone and how the location should be near to the ports, should be near to the markets. How this industrial zone will provide further facilities to the manufacturer. He will have the place with the infrastructure, with the facilities, with banks, some of the banks near this industrial park or industrial zone. Actually, I had visited some of industrial zones in Port Said, and also I went to Badr and Rubeki. You will find that there is branches of banks in this industrial zone to help the manufacturer if he needs further loans, if he needs to export. So who's going to handle the letter of credit and the letter of guarantee and all of this work? It will be done through banks and through different facilities. So the industrial zone, the idea of it is the location, the facilities, and also for the new industrial zones, it will provide the place to the youth by renting. If I can have enough cash to buy the place, so I can rent this place and pay a certain amount to the government. So this is actually a brilliant idea to encourage the youth to work, and also for the industrial zones also to support each other. I mean, if you went to Rebiki, you will find that the factories that or the workshop that they are supporting. So I may just manufacture the basis of the leather and give it to another factory that
feeding
will going
industry.
to do a further value added. And of course, we are all together near, each unit of us is near the other. So maybe there is no transportation mean at all. So all of this will make the cost of the production is less, and this will increase the competitiveness of our product. And this is what we want to do in future.
Let's talk about exports support programs and its role, its vital role in supporting the industry in the state.
Yes. I had received many requests from friends of mine who are just startups and said, we would like to do an export to another countries. What we should do? What about the cost of it? So actually the government is providing a lot of support of this. And what else the government is providing that for anyone who is going to exporting to any foreign country and for special markets, whatever you had paid, you will get again a repayment of 10% of it from the government. So what actually the government is doing is encouraging them to export. If you had paid 100,000, you will get 10,000. So what I'm doing, I'm just lessen of his cost. This is number one. I'm encouraging the exporter, and also I'm just giving him cash. Part of the encouragement also to the exporters, which is very nice, is to support them in doing traveling to further foreign countries. The government also will help them in marketing. If there is a certain forums, if there is a certain conferences to share with, the government will help the exporter in this. So this is very brilliant idea. To do it is to try to encourage them to market for the products and also to market for the Egyptian products in international markets.
Also, Dr. Zeinab, would like to know from you, how do you see the government's plan of the financial inclusion? And also the central bank's decision to lower the interest rates, and how can this impact or support the industrial sector?
For the youth to get a loan with a low interest rate from 5 to 7%, and maybe it will be an increase a little bit for some banks. This is very encouraging also to them. We are saying that's encouraging because actually all of these are obstacles. When we talk about a place for them to start, so when there is an industrial zone, so you are solving part of their problem. When you are talking about loans, and you're talking not all about loans, it's loans with low interest rate, you are solving part of their problem. Because I've been in a trip for doing like a conference and forums with the youth to encourage them to work on their small projects. And the first thing they had talked to us about it was also this forum was in Minya, in one of the markets there, said that the loans are having a very high interest rate. So we had talked to them, no, it's only from 5 to 7% interest rate. They said, no, it's still we need
a burden for them.
Yeah, it's still a burden for us because we need to work and we need to pay a lot of money. We need to hire labor. We need to work also to work on the know-how. So even for 5-7% for some micro enterprises, it will be also a number for them. So actually, we hear that the central bank and also through what the central bank had announced, that they want to work further to lessen this interest rate, and this is coming from the ground. Because we as professors, we hear a lot from people from the ground that still there is an obstacles related to the high interest rate for the micro, if you talk about the microfinance, so still to lessen it further. So all of this will encourage the small entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs to work on their projects. So the further and the more you lessen the interest rates, the more you will get also the benefit to the country, because the more you encourage more to come and to start their projects, at the end the government is the winner.
Right. What about the tax incentives effect?
The taxation incentives. Actually, the Parliament had approved in a primary basis, a new law that will encourage investors that if there's a certain dispute, so there will be no courts, there will be no committees, and for the investor to pay amount from whatever his obligation to the government. Part of the very successful work also that the government is working on the taxation part, because the taxation part It's the main issue that makes a lot of business to be informal, because they're just afraid to go to be formal, and then they have this obligation to pay a certain amount of taxes. So again, the government also is trying to facilitate paying taxes, to give tax incentives. Currently for the law 991 for the 2005, it already gave tax incentives to the investors. You have 5 years as a break. You don't pay. You have 10 years also as a break for some activities like land reclamation, agriculture work, animal production. So currently, for the current laws, there is incentives, and the government is trying to work for more incentives also to encourage the investors, and all of this will encourage the industrialization. If you talk about industrialization, so we are talking about a very important pillar, and also this pillar will encourage the informal to be engaged into formal. When he hears that there is no problems in taxes anymore, and the tax burden will be less, so why he will stay informal? He will be encouraged to be formal, to also to be bigger and to export to international markets, and to reach a stage that if he is ambitious enough to do so.
Doctor, on a broader scale, since President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi took the helm, he has nurtured an economic reform program. How do you see this more than 4 years on? How do you see this economic reform program paying off?
The first payment of the economic reform program was the 5.6% economic growth, which is a very quick payment, which is very important. Again, we're talking about the international image, and how, if you would like to attract investors, if you would like to create a good image about doing business in Egypt, so the first thing they have to look at, which is the macroeconomic indicator. So we had achieved this so far. We have the industrialization and the work that the government is doing now to encourage the Egyptian youth to work on industry and industrialization, which is very important. This is a very important part of the reform, because you can't work on industry, you can't work on laws and regulation without ensuring that at least you are working in a progressed economy. At least there is a stability and there is a progress, and the economy is getting bigger. The economy is getting bigger by production. If we produce more, so definitely we'll achieve more economic growth. So we'll talk about industrialization, we'll talk about also services. We have these healthcare programs, we started to have these types of programs, which is very important. We'll talk about human development. So part of economic reform is to achieve human development later on. And this is what is going on now. It's to talk about the program of the health sector, which started in Bursaid.
And the social protection also,
social protection, of course, and takaful karama. For part of the money, you are just injecting this amount of money out of the fruits of growth into the poor again. So it's part of our success. It's what is lacking now. It's for the Egyptian youth is to work. They have to work. This is the thing that will complete this economic reform, and to work hardly to get the opportunity and the chance from what's going on the ground.
We can't talk about empowering industrialization without laying the foundation for this type of empowerment or sources of empowerment. Among the sources of empowerment and enforcement is the vocational training.
Yes.
Vocational training is a vital element to that particular process. Talk to us about vocational trainings and the training in its own right, and how could it be applied to the best interest of the Egyptians to be able to enforce that sector.
Yes. I had an experience for the vocational training.
Of course.
That's
why I asked you.
Yes. I will say that because if we talk about vocational training and the technical training, there are a lot of players that we do have. But the main players we'll talk about is the Ministry of Manpower, through its training center, vocational center, which is located around all the governorates. And also, of course, we'll talk about the Ministry of Technical Education and Ministry of Vocational Education, where there is a multi of programs that have been provided through different schools for the vocational education. So we have private sector. We have a very successful businessman who had done a very successful also vocational training for their factories. And a lot of students, they may just graduate from whatever school they have, vocational school, and then they continue their technical and vocational training at these factories. And we have a lot of successful businessmen are doing so also on the ground. But what is lacking, actually, we still needs a lot, because I went to one of the vocational training center, which is affiliated to the Ministry of Manpower. They are providing a lot of technical training, but however, because you know, they still need a lot of financial support. The issue of the vocational training, there are good programs. There are hundreds and thousands of excellent trainers everywhere in every different technical programs you can imagine. But we still, the support and the financial support, this is the leakage that we need. So if we look for the coming budget and for the coming budgeting and planning for Egypt, more money need to be injected for this part in the part of the Ministry of Manpower and the Ministry of Vocational Training. It's actually, it's a vocational training is part of the Ministry of Education. So we still need more money and need more budget for this. But students are there, schools are there, facilities are there,
Experts are also
and
there.
experts are there.
Don't you think that the collaboration between the public and the private sector could help in allocating more budget?
Yes, it could definitely.
And it's a win-win situation for the private sector, or if a businessman or an owner of a factory invests in his workers, then they will be highly skilled and produce high-quality products that would bring back more revenue for the owner. So it's a win-win situation, I believe.
It's a win-win situation. It's happening now for the private sector, for the businessmen who are providing training in their private schools. They wouldn't do this without the approval from the Ministry of Education. So this is part of for the partnership. They have to approve the certificate that the student is going to get at the end of the training. But if you talk about a further collaboration, actually it needs a new way of thought. It needs a lot of flexibility from the public sector, and to know how the businessman is thinking and what is the best for the students and for the schools and facilities and all of this. So it needs a certain way of thought, of thinking. We hope that we could happen in future.
Yes.
President Abdel Fattah Sisi have given his directives to be able to revamp the spinning and textile sector in order to be regaining the renowned reputation of the Egyptian cotton. And as we know that this type of industry, Egypt have a lead in it. So it's one of the main industries in Egypt. It has been there for almost 50 or more, 50 years. There are underway efforts to be able to empower and enforce this type of industries. Talk to us about the other important industries that Egypt could be able to be renowned with. But let's also focus over the cotton industry, as we can see that the Egyptian administration is giving special care to be able to revive that particular industry in Egypt.
Yes, for the textile industry and for the cotton industry, it's the repetition already there. If you talk about that,
of
we
course,
would like to encourage our Egyptian exporters to export and find another international markets and to make a repetition. Already there is a repetition for our textiles. So what is lacking actually is the competitiveness. And I will give you this a piece of information from the ground. I was also in a small factory that is working on clothes and textiles. He's working so fine, everything is fine, but what is lacking is the competitiveness and the prices. If we have the good repetition, the thing that is lacking, it's how we work on the issue of pricing and how to minimize the cost so we can export to the international market with the proper prices. Especially we started to have competitors. Yani, I know that India is manufacturing also a very nice cloth from cotton, and they have very nice textiles.
Yes, and
so
for the premium brands, they're saying they take pride and put a lot of money saying that it's Egyptian cotton.
So yes, definitely. But in
All
India,
the
they request,
expensive
by all
international-
means, in India they requested for me Egyptian cotton. They asked it for
Not
me. Please
only
bring with
India,
us.
but all the international,
Yes,
very
yes,
expensive
yes.
brands.
Yes, I'm talking
and
about
designers
even the
there.
countries who are competing with us. They
Right.
know they know that we are better than them. So what is lacking is the proper marketing and also the pricing strategy. We need to compete with a lower price, and this also we need to bring a new technology and the new how. This is part of the pricing.
Exactly.
Yes,
New
this is what we-
technology and quality also
New
of the
technology-
industry itself.
New technology and the new and the know-how and the trained labor will get to you a good quality at the end. What's the problem? Why we have a low quality of production? Because of there is no training, there is no technology, and also there is no pricing strategy. You have to work. How can I just have an output with a good quality with a lower price?
Exactly.
With a lower number of inputs, how to be efficient in production. If I'm efficient in production, I will export with a lower price, so I'll be able to compete. All of this,
Exactly.
we need to work on this.
Doctor, if you can quickly walk us through the main industries in Egypt and the ones that we're excelling or pioneering in.
Yes, we're still excelling and pioneering in petrochemicals, engineering, construction, fertilizers, food
Agriculture, yes.
agriculture. But I don't approve on this agriculture because I want food industries. We want to create a value added. We don't want to export. Of course, we have a big portion from our exportation still in agriculture product.
Yes.
And this is what we don't
And
want
after
to happen.
the greenhouse project that was inaugurated by the president, we became among the world top exporters of orange, for instance.
Yes, yes. We need to create a value added on these agriculture products. Also, some of a good portion from our exports going to the Asian countries, and I think we have a window, hopefully for the coming maybe a few months ago, is to increase our exports to the Asian countries, given the disaster that they have nowadays. So we may just try to create a window for us and to create a window for our Egyptian exporters.
We talk about the Egyptian industries and how varied they are, and also speaking about the food industry, we know that there is the organic food in Egypt is incompatible, because you can buy it for thousands of dollars. I mean, you can spend a lot, really hefty amount of money for organic food abroad. Here it's very cheap and it's very healthy.
Yes, yes.
So this is one of the assets also of the Egyptian industry.
Yes,
food
yes.
industry.
But we need also for the Egyptian exporters, and also I have this information from the ground also, to have more markets for them, to market for the organic food and organic products.
Doctor, allow us to go for a short break, and we'll be back to resume.
Thank you so much for coming over to the breakfast show.
Thank
and
you.
For having this very informative interview
Thank
about
you.
Egyptian industry.
Thank you,
Thank
my
you,
dear.
Dr.
Thank you so
Nawar.
much.
And dear viewers, a short break, and I'll be back to resume the breakfast show live on Nile TV International.